Okay, so we have the character rigged. I might be slightly different than yours, but before we actually go ahead and we bind the joints to the skin cluster, what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you the science behind it so that you understand what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. Okay, so here, if I hit 4, go into wireframe mode. Oops, I turned joints off so I can see. You can see I have a skeleton inside there, right? Oh, I guess I do have X-ray joints on. So I have X-ray joints on. But you can see basically we have an object and then we have the skeleton. Okay. Now currently, you can rotate the skeleton. It doesn't affect this guy in any way. When you make a model, by default, the only way they can really move is you can just move the object, right? But if I wanted to be able to deform, to flex, to bend, to twist, you have to have some sort of deformer applied to it. Okay, so there are a bunch of different ones in here. So if you go underneath deformers, you'll see these different ones, like non-linear ones, which are pretty fun. So for instance, let's say we do sine here, and then let's say we do up the amplitude a little bit. Come on, like that, and then I could take the we'll do the wavelength roughly where it was, and then offset. You can't really see it, but it will actually animate it, moving as a curve, okay? And basically what it's doing, just so you get the idea, I'm going to pull this off. It's making the thing follow this line, okay? And there's a bunch of different deformers out there like that you can do, okay? But the most common one, let me tell you history. The most common one to do is the main driver of your character, I should say, is actually going to be the bind skin, okay? So I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly bind this. Don't worry about the settings for now. I'll discuss that in the next one. Just going to make sure these look okay. And we'll set bind skin. And what that's going to do is that now it's going to make the geometry move with my my joints, okay? Now to some different results, if you will. But you'll see that there's this skin cluster node, okay? So that's the thing that's doing that's the binding of it, okay? Now, like I said, when I go like this, it'll bend this. So what's happening is that all of these vertices that are now on my guy, okay, each one of these little vertices, are now in a way sort of parented to the different joints. So when this joint rotates, it rotates this vertice, okay? But it's not 100%, which means that this isn't 100% moving with this joint. It's a percentage moving with it, okay? It's also being moved probably by this joint or maybe this joint up here a little bit, okay? So if I go to paint skin weights, you don't have to do any of this. I just want you to watch it. I'm going to try and discuss this as quickly as possible so the video doesn't get too awful long. What you're going to see is that I have joint 1, which is this, joint 2, and joint 3, okay? When I have joint 1 selected, you'll see where it's white means that that bit moves 100% with that joint. If I select joint 2, you're going to see that it's gray in this area, but then it becomes really white, and then the bottom becomes a little bit gray. And when I do joint 3, you're going to see it's a little bit gray on this end joint, okay? So this end joint has some effect down here, but not 100%. Joint 2 has almost 100% right here. See how it's really bright white? But then this gradation that you see right here, right? That is basically the fall off of this joint, which means it's almost 100% here, but then right around in here, it's probably about 50% gray, meaning that it's about 50% parented with this and about 50% parented with this. You can also see there's a mistake in the default binding. Notice how this has got a little bit of gray on it? That's why when I go to rotate this, you'll notice that it's wiggling this because this joint is actually rotating it a little bit. And to really kind of drive that home, you'll notice that if I were to, let's paint this, oops, oh, okay, I'm on it, and yep, okay. If I was to paint this, let's say, make it solid, 100%, okay? Now you're going to notice, just so you really get the idea here, that see how it moves 100% with this joint? Okay, so that's the idea. So basically what you're doing is when you paint weights, you're actually just painting the value of how much it's parented to the joint. This is what we're going to do on this character in just a second, okay? So if I paint this 100%, it's going to move 100% with this, all right? Now, actually, hang on. what you're going to see is that we can paint a value up to 1 from 0 to 1. All right. What that means is that if I select, let's say I grab, let's say I grab one of these vertices down here, which was pretty much purely white when I select this joint, okay? I'm going to go to Windows, General Editors, and then we'll do Component Editor. This will allow me to see the weights, okay? So when we see joint 11 and joint 12, so what that means is that this is joint, let me see what joint this is. Come on. Can I go to object mode? Cute. Object mode. Okay. Let me just make sure this is what joint. Cool. Come on. Joint 12 and the one above is joint 11. Okay, so joint 12, joint 11. There we go. So if I select this vertex, you're going to see that to joint 11, it's 0.052, so less than 1%. And then it's 0.948, and the total is 1, meaning that the total value of its influence will always equal 1. So if I were to add more to joint 11, let's say I do 0.25, you're going to see it's going to make this one 0.75 because it can never be more than 1. So now when this would rotate, this would rotate 75% to this joint and 25% to this joint. And if I select this one, you're going to see it's 0.994 to this joint, and joint 12, which is this one, it's 0.006, which means it's almost doing almost nothing. If I want to make this 100%, I can just go like this and be like, that should just be 100%. And now you'll see that joint's gone, and now this is 100% to the top one. So normally what you want to have happen when you're having a particular point of articulation, this joint right here, I want to flex only in this area. I don't want it to be one big roundish motion, right? So when I go to bend this, see how it's curved quite a bit, right? That doesn't look like an elbow. It's like it's too curved here, right? This is awful too, but it's too curved there. So most of the time what you want to have happen is you want to paint your weights like this. So we go, let me turn this off. I go to joint 11, and what I want to do is paint 100% here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and go replace, which means it's just going to make it the value that I tell it to be. So when I have this joint and I paint a value of 1, okay, it's going to paint a value of 100 to this joint. Now you'll notice if I click on this one, it'll be perfectly black. See, I didn't get over here. But watch, if I go over here and then paint white right there, because I have the value of 1 right here, you're going to see now it's not that. But again, I didn't get the back here. Now you might have this on by default just so you're aware. Right now it's using black and white. You can also use a color ramp. And that will show you, instead of just doing black to white, it'll go from blue to red. So red would be 100% on, and then blue would be almost off, and then black would be absolutely off. Okay? So you can actually see a little more subtlety with it, but I find it a little bit harder to actually understand. Okay, so scroll up. Come on. There you go. All right, so what I'm going to do is up to here, I'm just going to paint white. Go ahead and go past it, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to go like this. I have a solid brush, and I have a value of 1, and I'm just going to go ahead and just paint white like this. Make sure I get everything. And I'm actually going to go right over past the other one, which is actually going to be awful to start with. We'll go like that, okay? Looks great. Now, if I go to joint 12, you're going to see it's going to be black there, because now, if we were to bend this, you're going to see it's an absolutely hard edge. There's no gradient. There's no blending, because this is 100% to this joint, and this top part is 100% to this joint, right? When I bend this, it'll bend that, which subsequently bends that, okay? Now, what I can do is go to joint 12 now, and I don't want joint 13. I doesn't need to have any influence here, so I'm going to basically paint over top of that. So what I'm going to do is I'll start off with the same values. I'm going to start off with 100%, so I'll just go around, make sure I got it real good. This is actually where having color is helpful, because I can make sure that it's absolutely white. And I'm going to hold B to make it smaller. We're going to do this in a second on the model. I just want you to hopefully understand the concept of what we're trying to do. Okay, so now it's 100% here and 100% there. Now, normally what you want to have happen is this. See where the joint is? I want that to be 50% to this joint, this edge loop right here, the one that's right here. I want it to be 50% to this joint and 50% to this joint, so it goes halfway between the two, right where this is. Then I want to do a fall off. I want to do 50% here, then 75%, and then up to 100%. Okay? So while I have 100%, I'm just going to go ahead and go across here. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this value, I'm going to do 0.75. All right, so, and we'll make this a little bit smaller. Also, when I'm painting are the vertices, not the face. See, if I like this and do anything, I'm actually painting on the vertices themselves. They're the things that are receiving the values. Then I'm going to go ahead and do 0.5. Okay, now next I need it to fall off this way, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a value of 0.25. Now, because this was 100% to the top part, by making this 0.25, that leaves the upper joint here with 0.75 because it has to equal 1 total. Okay, now, just so you get the idea again, click up here. When I get this, you're going to see it's going to gradient the other way. So for this arm, this is 0.75 for that joint, but when I'm on this one, it's 0.25 to this joint. And if we click on this one that goes right where the joint is, it's 0.5 to the upper joint. You're going to see it's going to be the same color. And it's 0.5 to the lower joint. Now, when I go to bend this, you'll see it's going to be a perfect halfway between kind of flexion. So basically, this line right here is moving 50%. And then this is 75%. And then it goes to 100%. Then this is 25% to this joint. And then nothing right here. Now, it's not perfect because you can see you get this kind of weird thing going on here. So you have to make some choices about how you want to do things. But that's basically the idea behind it. So now, again, if I were to go to Vertex and select, let's say, one of these points, just select one of them, and Windows, General Editors, where are you? Component Editor. You're going to see that one is 0.5 to joint 12 and 0.5. And then this one is 0.75 to the upper joint and 0.25 to the lower joint. And then this will just be 100% to the top one. So the only blending now is happening between these 3 edge loops. So all the flexion goes here, and then the rest of this is 100% to him, and the rest of this is 100% to her. And that's basically the idea behind it, okay? So hopefully you get an idea of what we're doing, because what we're going to do is we're going to bind our character to the skeleton, but we're going to do it in the same manner. Well, we're going to do other things, but the idea here is that you're basically painting the parenting value of each vertice to the joints themselves. Hopefully that made sense.